doesn't really work for our life. We are denying simple biofeedback of hunger and cravings. And we have guilt anytime we eat something a food we think's on the bad list. We have this whole dysfunctional relationship with food because of diet culture. And what we have determined as our like way of healthy eating is based on, Sally the influencer and Whole30 diet and maybe bits of keto and this and that. And at the end of the day, the reason why you keep fighting yourself is because it doesn't work for you.
Welcome to you. And I am going to over deliver today because I have somebody on that is going to speak our language. And that is the language of how do we keep ourselves looking good, feeling good, and then be able to sustain it, right? How many times have you done something where one of those diets gets you up, gets you down? And I'm sure for some of you, if you're listening to this in January, high five if you're doing the, no drink January. High five if you've decided to start a new program. And high five to you if you've already fallen off the wagon. Why do I say that? Because you are here today listening to this and we're going to get you back on track. And it's not necessarily getting you back on that same old wagon that is bumpy as heck. So anyway, so excited. I've got Amber Shaw with me. She is a mind and body transformation expert. She's the founder of the Wellness Revolution, a leading global movement for thousands of women. Here's the kicker. Over 40, ladies and gents. This is it. She is empowering everyone to rediscover their confidence and create a lifestyle that is effortless and sustainable. As a motivational speaker, philanthropist, and international recognized authority in the health and wellness industry, Amber coaches on everything across all the world of achieving sustainable weight loss without dieting their way through life. How good does that sound to all of us? Just to be healthy and to be happy and confident in ourselves. What perfect timing. Amber, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. What an intro. I need you as my hype lady. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I get so excited. And, we have now spoken a few times and obviously there is a huge connection. It's like, you're my best friend that I've known since I was in, third grade. And as we are talking, there's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What am I doing? And how do we get to work together? And how do we keep this going? Because there are people out there that elevate your energy, right?
Yes.
And you talk about the vibe of your tribe, and there is a vibration. There's a vibration of people that people bring things, and you bring this to your audience. You bring this. But for those that don't know who you are, for those that are not really familiar, or they want to hear more about this girl, Amber, that, they've been following, I'd like to have you share a little bit about this relaunch journey. And you've had many relaunches, but what would you say, Amber, has set you up for such success right now, and the journey that you've taken and the relaunch that was the most impactful that changed your life?
Oh, I love that. And just to reiterate, you're saying, yes, I mean, we do attract that high vibration vibe, that high vibration circle. And so I'm so glad you're in mine. So, that's such a great question. And yes, you are right. I mean, I have had so many relaunches, I think, throughout my life. So many of us had, but I think the most recent and most impactful that really changed the trajectory of my life was the relaunch that I had back in 2019, when when I was I had some very big changes coming up in my life. I was getting ready to turn 40. I was also in a very traumatic time in my marriage. My marriage was really on was on the rocks, and I knew that divorce was really on its way. And I was just going through a time in my life where I was asking a lot of questions of what did I want my next 40 years to look like? I was in a sales job, a very successful sales job. I was making multiple six figures. I could do it in my sleep. And I'd done it for 18 years, but I was very unsatisfied. I also didn't
I'm sure a lot of people are sitting out there and that this message is resonating, hitting the 40 mark, hitting that point where you're like, you know what? I'm trying to figure out, like, where's the spark? How
Where's
do
the
I,
spark?
where is that
Yeah.
spark? Heck, it's a little dull. It's a little dulled out at this point.
Yeah. And, I just had this like overwhelming feeling. Well, it was a couple of things. One, I had this overwhelming feeling, and I had for a long time, that I was meant for so much more, that I knew that my dharma was so much bigger than selling commercial printing as a sales rep. I knew that I was bigger than that. I was meant for bigger than that.
It's so funny. I'm sitting here and I'm smiling because, I knew I was meant to not be just selling Oracle financials in my manufacturing.
Right.
Oh, please, God, tell me this is not the only thing I'm going to be doing in my life.
Tell me there's more. Please tell me that there's more. But I also knew, because I was going through such a difficult time in my life with two young children at home, and going through a very hard time in my marriage. I was doing a lot of therapy at that time, and a lot of self-help. And I just had this undeniable feeling that I was meant to share my pain with the world, to turn it into purpose. And that I was not supposed to, I was not supposed to hoard like all of what I had learned, that I was going through what I was going through because I was meant to share it to help others. And so I took that's a
scary process.
It's a scary process.
I got to tell you, that is when I finally shared a really heart-wrenching, scary as, type of situation that happened in my business world. I was like, why am I really going to do this? Am I really going to put this in the book? Am I really going to, express something about Niagara Falls and feeling like somebody was going to push me over the edge? Yeah. Like it's a lot. It's a lot to be vulnerable. It's a lot to share, and to kind of bring that up, that, for some, it's like that, and for me especially, it was like, oh my God, what are people going to think? Are they going to be like, well, you should have known, you should have done this, you should have done that. And so you're going through all of this, and these things are running through your head. But there was this bigger calling. I don't know what you believe in terms of, spirit, God,
sure.
universe,
Yes.
whatever it is,
all
but something was going on with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I am a very spiritual person, and I do refer to my higher power as God. And so I knew that God really did have a purpose, and that is a hard thing to lean into. But I read a very, very impactful book at the time for me by Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Your Back. And it really that book alone even changed the trajectory of my life, because it allowed me to lean into the pain, to lean into the discomfort, and really trust that something bigger and better was on the other side for me. Because you really, in that moment, when you're going through pain, you have two choices. You can either sit and decide, and say, this is happening to me, or you can make a choice and say, this is happening for me. You may not understand it. You may not like it. It may hurt a whole heck of a lot, which it probably does. But you really do, no matter what is going on, what your circumstances are, you do always have a choice on how you react to them.
And there is that moment of reckoning where you say, all right, I'm looking at the situation, and is it going to create victim in me, or is there a possibility? All you need to see is that there is a possibility that you could have, your personal power back, that you could actually take it back just a little by just realizing that you have a choice. You have a choice. Absolutely. And it's one of the few things that we actually have a choice over is how we
Absolutely.
view situations. So that is so on point with what we're doing. And I love that you said, Gabby Bernstein's books, so great. And I would even take it one step further as, I've been really like, standing on the mountaintop screaming. It's like, you've got to tune into your
Yes.
thoughts, tune into your emotions, and tune in to your actions that you're going to be taking. Like, what are you really doing to keep yourself, stuck or feeling less empowered than you can be? So that I understand, and I'm sure people are relating to this, head nodding out there saying, yeah, and maybe they're going through it right this second. So you're going through this, but then you're also like having that moment in life where you are willing to say, hey, I'm at the mid zone.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 40 and I'm at the halfway here. I'm on the bench and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to be in the game or not?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I took a trip to Costa Rica, and it was, talking when you're talking about really getting quiet and really, going inward. I mean, that is absolutely, I think, what really led to me making a lot of, big, uh, game changing decisions for myself was just getting quiet and allowing that connection, right? That inner voice, which I do believe is our direct line to source or universe or to God. And in a very quiet moment on the beach, I just very simply asked God, what is my, and I went with the intention of asking what was my next career move, like what I needed, what was I supposed to be doing? And just, I'll never forget the moment. It literally, the word just hit me with this all knowing, like just ton of bricks. I heard coach, you're supposed to be a coach. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But I
Now,
heard
now
it.
I have to ask you, Amber,
Yeah.
from when you were young, did you find that people were coming to you, asking your opinions on things? Had you been in some type of a coaching role ever, or was this like, whoa, okay, where do we go from here?
So my personality, I think, has always just been, a leader and a very, always wanting to help people. And I've always had a very philanthropic heart. And I've always been the person that, people come to it for advice. And so I think just innately in my personality, I think that's been the case. But when it comes in how I kind of went into the health and wellness, particularly coaching women, is, forward facing to what everybody saw me doing in my, teens, 20s, and 30s, is that I was the athlete. I was the very in shape, worked out all the time, ate very well, did all the things. And so people would come to me all the time for that kind of advice. But what people didn't know is underneath all of that was a very, very sad woman who had an eating disorder, who
Hmm.
was so body obsessed, who was chronically on a diet, who was constantly having feelings of not being worthy, and just always, I couldn't even walk by a mirror without lifting up my shirt and pulling on the fat on my stomach. I mean, I was in a prison for most of my life when it came to my body, and nobody really knew except for my inner circle.
Isn't that,
And
oh, but your inner, that's interesting because usually I remember when I ended up getting separated from my husband, and it was one of these, like, people had no idea. I had done such a good job with the covering it up of, oh yeah, yeah, this is great, everything is super. And what you're saying is that you had shared some of these really deep, dark secrets with some of your inner circle.
well, and really, I'm like, now that I think about it, I'm like, my inner circle was my mom and my therapist. So there's that.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, my mom knew. My mom knew too.
My mom and
That's
my
great, Amber.
therapist.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense because I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, wow, that's impressive.
No, it was my
Okay.
mom and my therapist.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here you're going through the battles and you have pretty much done this. It's, the up and down, and you were really struggling with maintaining your weight, and you were trying all these different types of diets to keep. Was there one method that you were using consistently to really keep yourself at your weight?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I was bouncing from one extreme diet to the next. There was never any consistency at all with any sort of like healthy habits. It was just chasing the next. I mean, and then what was going to give me even, because I was constantly, because I didn't have that inner confidence
Mm.
within, I was constantly just raising the bar. So I would do a diet, I'd lose weight, and then that wasn't good. It was never good enough. I was never good enough. And so I was constantly bouncing from one to the next. I've done every single one out there, like literally
So before we go
everyone.
into all of that, I want to go back to you're sitting on the beach at Costa Rica. Your intention was, hey, what kind of work, what should I really be doing? How should I be serving? How can I get something to light me up? And this is something that I know so many women out there right now are struggling with, that, that their light's gone dull, that they can't figure out like how to do that. I like the approach that you took. You said, I set the intention that I'm going down to Costa Rica and I am going to figure out what I really, what comes to me. You're willing to listen. You said you're willing to be open. But I would also say that in those moments of silence, you are willing to listen. And so many of us are like, I'm listening, I'm just not hearing.
Mm.
You heard that day on the beach. And so what happened at that point? How old are you at that point?
So this is right. I was 39. I hadn't turned 40 yet. So I was
Okay.
like right before my 40th birthday. And
Okay.
so, well, what happened is I just undeniably heard it. And so then I'm a doer, right? I think this is what's made me a successful entrepreneur. And just, I've always been a doer. And so I immediately just came back with that knowledge, with that answer that I felt very convicted in, and just really started thinking about, okay, what does this look like? And I think this is what, if you're listening to this and you're somebody who, there is something that you want to make a change, but you're scared because you don't have all the answers. What I can tell you is that you don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes there's so much beauty in allowing things to unfold, but you have to take the first step. And so for me, and what paralyzes people is thinking they have to have it all figured out before they take that step. And so for me,
They have to know the
they
how.
have to know the how, right? And
You can't, it's even better if you don't know the how,
it
because
is,
then you're
because
so willing to open up to whatever is going to come.
absolutely. Even in business too, I can tell you, like,
Mhm.
where I thought I was starting out and where I am now is not the same thing. So I came back and I took that first step. I enrolled in a year-long integrated nutrition program, and I just was like, I'm just going to start there. Like, let me just start there, and then let's see how this goes. And so that's what I did. And then it was like the building blocks. It was one, okay, I've done this. Now here's my next step. Right. And then here's my next step. Right. So
So
just,
I know that there are people out there that are thinking to themselves, okay, did you immediately go in and quit? And did you overlap? How did you do that part of it? And before you answer, we do have to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to hear how she actually stepped into this coaching. And we're also going to hear about healthy habits that she is now absolutely saying can help impact and change your lives. When we come back, we'll hear all from Amber. This episode is brought to you by my very own labor of love, my most recent book, ReLaunch. This book is a collection of my stories, other stories, and is a motivational guide to living a new 3HQ lifestyle, sparking your heart to ignite your life. It's available for purchase via Amazon. Get ready to try on the 3HQ method that I've been using for years throughout my entire life, reaching the next level in all areas, both professionally and personally. Get your copy today at www.therelaunchbook.com. Welcome back. So happy to have Amber Shaw on here because we are talking from her perspective. She is a board certified health and wellness coach and a certified personal trainer. And she has been in the last segment. If you weren't a part, if you're joining us now, go back, listen to it later, because it's about the vulnerability of understanding how food, how it can control our lives, how it can make us feel like, we're not good enough, like we're not doing things right. And it can continue to have that like noose on your neck. And now we're going to go into Amber was sharing how she was sitting on a beach in Costa Rica, and she all of a sudden had this hit from source, from God, saying, you know what, you need to be a coach. And she said that she took a training, but we're trying to figure out, what was that like when you really finally, you spark this interest and you're going for your passion, you're going for that purpose of your life. How do you do that when you've been in a role in a job for so long and you're like, no, this is what I need to do? How did you do that, Amber?
Yeah, such a good question. So yeah, as you said, I mean, I came back from Costa Rica. I'm in this stage of my life where I'm getting ready to turn 40. I am realizing, that I am unhappy in my job. I'm definitely unhappy in my marriage because a divorce is on the, on the horizon. And I know, even though we're in a lot of therapy, I knew that was coming. And so, yeah, so I came back though, because I had that undeniable hit from God that said, how you are supposed to turn your pain into purpose is you are supposed to be a coach. And as I was saying before the break, I didn't know exactly. I wasn't even sure that it was going to be in the health and wellness space. But after a lot of soul searching and some more, sessions of getting quiet with myself and really listening and tuning in, I did decide that, health and wellness had always been a passion of mine. Sometimes, even though it was a passion, it is what led to a lot of pain in my life too. Like, as I mentioned, the eating disorders and body obsession and all of that. But I was also realizing at this time that I was tired of living like that too. And that I felt like maybe there was some way that by becoming a coach, I could also heal myself and break free of the bondage of being a slave to food and constantly dieting, that dysfunctional relationship with my body. And so I really did feel like there was a reason behind that too, in my own healing, and that I was meant to heal that piece of me. And I was meant to take that and help others do that as well. And
So, you know
so,
what's interesting here is that I never believe people are having midlife crises.
mm,
I believe they're going through a midlife identity search.
mm,
And an identity crisis is when, whether it's in your business, your personal existence, you're starting to realize that there's this, as my grandma used to say, divine discontent. Something's not
mm.
right. And I'd like to ask, were you still doing that roller coaster dieting all the way up until you became a coach, or had you kind of figured something out before this?
No, it was really like around this time. So then I'd like turned 40, and then it really, things started to shift for me when I enrolled into the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I started really leaning into my health as opposed to like weight loss. And when you start making conscious decisions about healthy habits, about with the intention of improving your health, well, weight loss is the byproduct. Like, I'm sorry, it just is, right? When you're concerned about reducing inflammation in the body, one of the big things is reducing sugar and alcohol. And so then it's just going to naturally, more than likely, lead to just a healthier, more lean body. And so what I realized is that throughout this process, when I started really leaning into what I was learning more about functional medicine and integrative nutrition and all of that, that I didn't have to work as hard to keep my body healthy. It was just more natural. And then I really started learning about different types of foods, like beyond just, like broccoli and plain chicken. Like, I learned about, eating a more colorful diet, eating, lots of different, more complex carbohydrates, quinoa and farro and barley and all the good things.
Hold on, we don't
That
want to scare people away
I
quite
know,
yet.
I
Hold
know.
on.
That's true.
I want
That's
to,
true.
I want to go back here for a second. And you said something that I am intrigued with, that the the piece that I'm hearing is, I talk often about changing your channel. And when you think about changing a channel on a dial in a car, remember olden days where you're like, if you were a little off,
Yeah.
it would go crackly. And you could just do it in such an easy way by moving it just so ever so slightly to the right or the left. And it would
Yeah.
absolutely like be crystal clear at that moment.
Yes.
And it's not hard. It wasn't hard.
I,
It's not hard to do that. And that's what you were saying. It's like when it's right, it it makes it flawless. It makes it like it just flows. And so for people that are listening and saying, I really, I like what Amber's saying. I like that she's, sharing that, she constantly had this battle, but how can somebody change the channel? You mentioned inflammation. And what does it mean to have a body in inflammation?
So, our body inflammation is our body's like natural response, right? To anytime there's any kind of like threat to the body, right? So, inflammation in the body is actually a positive thing. That is something that we want. However, chronic inflammation is not something that we want. And so that physical response that we have, like I said, when there is a threat and things like alcohol, sugar, environmental toxins, those are all considered like a perceived threat to the body. And so we have this response in order to protect the body. But when our body constantly thinks it's under attack, then it starts to have negative effects on our body. And actually, I just did a podcast interview with a doctor, functional medicine doctor earlier, and she was saying that was one of the top three things. Inflammation in the body is one of the top three things she sees as related to weight loss resistance, right? Like why people struggle to have weight, to lose weight. Inflammation is one of the top ones. I think that, starting to have, what's important is starting to have a little bit of a reframe of what is the intention behind our nutrition, right? If we constantly have this intention of, I think, behind like weight loss, which that for a lot of women and men too, there's a lot of baggage but behind like our goal of weight loss, because for so many of us, we've been trying to adhere to these restrictive diets and programs that may work for a little while, but then they don't. And I always used to say, with every failed diet, it like took a little bit of my confidence away as like just a human being.
Well,
And
and it's
so
not just your own failed experiences. I think it's also like, let's just take the poor egg, right? The egg. And if you think about in the 50s, it was like, you see the ads and it was like two fried eggs on a plate with a piece of toast. And then all of a sudden it was, eggs were really bad. Don't eat the eggs. Then it came
right.
back and it was like, eat only the egg whites. Then it was, Rocky Balboa taking two raw eggs and putting it in a shake. Then it's like, you do not want to do that because that's going to kill you with salmonella. Then it goes back to now, who knows? Now it's just we can't get eggs in Colorado anymore because, we've got this bird flu. But you put media attention, then you put your own, and you hear keto is the way to go. You hear, be a vegan, it's overwhelming. So
it is overwhelming. And
crack code for us right now. Crack
well,
the code. Like, what do you really do? Break it down, make it easy.
Well, first of all, what you really do, and this is the most important thing, is that you find what works for you. You talked about tuning in that dial. So much of the biggest struggle that I hear, because I coach primarily women, but what I hear from women is that it's not that I don't know what to do. I just struggle with being consistent. And the reason why for most women at this stage, 40, 50 and beyond, because we've read all the blogs, we've read all the books, we know information, we know we'll have a lot of information, but it's the fact that what we are trying to stick to is too restrictive. Like what we consider, I'm doing air quote, healthy eating doesn't really work for our life. We are denying simple biofeedback of hunger and cravings. And we have guilt anytime we eat something a food we think's on the bad list. We have this whole dysfunctional relationship with food because of diet culture. And what we have determined as our like way of healthy eating is based on, Sally the influencer and Whole30 diet and maybe bits of keto and this and that. And at the end of the day, the reason why you keep fighting yourself is because it doesn't work for you. And so there is a way there is a way to really, have healthy habits and a healthy lifestyle that will move the needle if you have some weight loss goals, that will move the needle towards those goals, but that also fits within your life, your higher self, how you want to live your life, your future self. It is possible, but the very first step is to stop doing what everybody else is telling you to do and wonder why you can't stick to it.
Okay, Amber, I just figured it out. You and I are destined to write the 3HQ cookbook.
Yes.
That's where we're going. But I do have to ask you, and for those that have read my book, Relaunch, Spark Your Heart, Ignite Your Life, in there I do discuss, and for those close to me, they know I have a problem. I adore chips. I don't know
Same.
why. I don't know why. I like tortilla chips. I like potato chips. Gross chips. I like chips.
Who doesn't?
And yeah, okay. Well,
I love them.
but again, I know they're not good for me. I know they're not good for me. But my gosh, if they're in the house, I'm going to grab them at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm going to eat them. And I'm going to do a shout out to the Boulder Chip Company. Oh my God, the best chips ever. You can order them on Amazon. They're so good. But why is that? Why is that we become fixated on certain foods? And it's almost like I feel a little bit like it's not even my guilty pleasure. It's my guilty guilt.
I love that you're asking that. I'm going to tell you exactly why. It's because somewhere along the line, you have determined, even if it's buried in your subconscious, that chips are bad. You just said chips are not good for me. And really what you're saying is that chips are bad. Chips are bad. I'm really not supposed to have them. That's what you're really saying. Mm-hmm. And what happens, like even just like in our brains, when we say that statement, this is bad, I'm not supposed to have it, it automatically slams us into the monkey mind, that part of our mind that doesn't allow us to make conscious decisions, like rational decisions. All we can think about is the chips. When it's just like, we're humans. When somebody tells you can't do something, what do you want to do? True. You want to do it, right? Like when somebody says you can't do something, all you do, your energy goes there, your attention goes there. And so when I coach women, one of the very first things that we do is we work on letting go of this mentality that food is either good or bad. Food's food. Right. And we start to have a reframe, because a very powerful thing happens when you can let go of this mentality that food is either good or bad. And I call it the power of permission. You give yourself permission to say, you know what? I'm a grown-ass woman. I can actually eat. I can eat those chips if I want. I can eat those chips. They are available to me anytime. And even I always say it's almost like Jedi mind tricking yourself. When you actually just say that, it's like your thought process moves to a different part of your brain. And now you've created space to actually ask yourself, well, do I really want those? Do I really want those? How are those going to make me feel? You start to be able to ask deeper questions. How are those going to make me feel? Do I really want those? What am I really craving? Is it the chips that I'm really craving? Or is it like that salty, vinegary flavor
Amber,
that I want?
You are hitting on a nerve, baby. Because I got to tell you, we just got back from Mexico. We were in Cabo for a week with another couple. And I was a chip, like, I don't even want to use the word, but it was so bad. I was just, guacamole and chips. I mean, every meal. And I came back and I said, I'm going to give myself 5 days of no chips. And today is day 4. And
are you white knuckling it? How are you doing?
I got to tell you, first 2 days, I was like, I really would like those chips. And now that I haven't had them, I am not really missing them right now. So what's happening there?
Well, first off, what I will say is I love that you are doing that, but what I will say, and I will challenge you, that to me kind of is lifestyle 1.0 though. What I would love to see you get to,
because after the week, I'm like, I did my week. Exactly. Now I'm going to go back to my chip problem.
And this is what happens of why men and women maybe eat all week, eat well for a period of time. Maybe for some people, it looks like I eat well all day long. And then at night I fall apart, or I eat well all all week long. And then on the weekends, I fall apart and I start over every single Monday. Like eventually, like I love that you're doing this. This is a great step, but it's not the final solution. It is lifestyle 1.0 because eventually your willpower, because you're operating on willpower right now. But I will say a couple of things to answer from a physiological standpoint. What is happening though is if you are, it's the same thing that can happen with sugar. When you do start to work out some of that processed and packaged stuff, like the high sugar, highly, processed stuff, chips, all that kind of stuff, your body does start to, like, especially with sugar, your body will start to want it less. And like when you start replacing it with more whole foods, less processed and packaged foods, it does start to, like, your body does start to want it less. However, you didn't have a lobotomy. Like you're still going to always love chips. Like I just want to say that. So what I'm saying is that the goal is really always to get to lifestyle 2.0 where you can, really, I always say taste everything, but binge on nothing. Right. And so when you can let go of this, when you can say, and my clients use this as a mantra, like I'm a grown ass woman, like I can eat what I want to eat. I can make, this is not good or bad. I'm not bad for eating the chips. Right. It's just, is it going to move the needle towards my health goals or is it not? And then if you still decide to have the chips, well, fine. Like that's a life, like that's okay. I don't want you ever to be white knuckling it or fighting the craving, but I want you to do it from a mindful place of, okay, I'm going to have a few and enjoy them. And then maybe I'll wait a little bit. And if I want some more, because again, something very primal happens once we start, like if we keep telling ourselves we can't have something and then we're like, we like white knuckle it, and then we finally have it. The reason why we can binge is because then once we're like, we go all in, we're like, well, I've already been bad. I might as well keep being bad and I'll be good tomorrow.
Like, how many people out there are saying, that's me.
That's me. Yes.
That's my approach. If I'm really bad at lunch, it's like, I've already been bad. I've already had that dessert. I might as well just be bad the rest of the day. Okay. Well, listen, we are about to go on a quick break. You do not want to miss hearing. We're going to go into the actual tips. We're going to hear, how do you start this? What can you be thinking from Amber? So stay tuned. We will be right back. This episode is brought to you by my very own labor of love, my most recent book, ReLaunch. This book is a collection of my stories, other stories, and is a motivational guide to living a new 3HQ lifestyle, sparking your heart to ignite your life. It's available for purchase via Amazon. Get ready to try on the 3HQ method that I've been using for years throughout my entire life, reaching the next level in all areas, both professionally and personally. Get your copy today at www.therelaunchbook.com. Are you ready to kick diets to the curb and to not be worried anymore about the things you're actually eating? Well, Amber Shaw is here, and we are now finally going into the tips, the strategies, the habits that you no longer have to think about, what diet am I starting on Monday? Because you're going to start to embrace these, live these, create these habits. And from what I hear, Amber does an amazing job with making sure that people don't feel like they're giving things up. So Amber, this is the segment, everyone. If I had a drum, I'd like drum roll right now. Hey, Josh. Josh is my guy who helps me with my back end. So give me a drum. Da, 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 da. So here's the thing. People want to know, because diet fads have been, like you said, influencer. I'm on this diet right now. It's, oh my God, I'm losing so much weight. It's so great. And then everyone like flocks to that. And then it stops working. And I'll never forget, there was a friend of mine, her husband, every single January, he did this thing where he literally put his body into ketosis. He couldn't exercise because that would somehow make the muscles get eaten. And he ended up losing a ton of weight. And people were like, I need to know about that.
And muscle.
And muscle. And I need that. And I would literally go to parties at the end of the month and people would be like, oh my God, you look so amazing. And then you'd see him a month later and he looked just like he did, in December. He had already bounced back. And I just, every year, people do these things, these crazy things. So help us understand, because you went through this.
Yes.
You hit that wall where it's like, oh my God, my health is suffering. I need to do some changes here. Tell us what you, if you're sitting out there listening and people are just so desperate to hear, like, just tell me what I need to do. Tell me how I can get myself back. Because that's
Yes.
really what we're trying to do is, I want to get me back.
Absolutely. And, I first want to really just, if you are somebody that is listening and you are feeling very uncomfortable in your body and you are tired of feeling self-conscious of the way you look and feeling like none of your clothes fit, I want to honor you that is a very real and awful place to be. And so, that it's not easy. It's not easy, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to share with you what I think are kind of like the big top three dial movers of like, if you are somebody who is like, okay, I am ready to like lose the weight and it not come back. That's the key. I teach sustainable weight
Mm.
loss, right? Like what are kind of the three big shifts that have to happen? And I would say the very first one is letting go of the diet mentality. Really, really owning that weight loss, the kind of weight that you lose and doesn't come back is not found in a diet. You have to get your mind right that it is about building habits. It's about the lifestyle. Okay. That is the very first step is let go of the diet mentality. The second step, stop trying to lose weight. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive here, but let me explain that. The problem is with diets, and if you are somebody that has done a lot of diets and you struggle to stay consistent, or you do diets and you lose weight and just like you said, your friend, right? It's like you lose it, then you gain it, then you lose it and you gain it. The problem with diets is that they teach us nothing about they go right for the nutrition. They go right for the fitness, right? And that's what we focus on, but they do nothing to focus on our mindset and our habits and our lifestyle. And so we are in this container of whatever diet we're doing for this short amount of time, we're following somebody else's plan, somebody else's meal, somebody else's program. We're probably doing things that are too restrictive, that aren't realistic for real life. And so whatever you commit to, if keto is your jam, well then great, but make sure it's your jam that is a lifestyle for you, that's effortless, that's sustainable, and that you are really happy doing for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're never going to stick to it. And so when I say stop trying to lose weight, what I'm saying is stop focusing on the outcome of the
Mm.
weight loss and start focusing on the process. Start shifting your identity now of of the healthy person you're trying to be in the future. And the weight loss will be the byproduct. Stop worrying about, trying to get to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. How about you start focusing on getting to bed at a
Mm.
good, decent hour so that it will make getting up at 5 a.m. if that's your goal easier, right? So really take the time to focus on the process. If you struggle with staying consistent in your nutrition because you don't plan, well, then start focusing on planning, spending
Mm.
5 minutes the night before your day, planning your nutrition. We plan everything else in our life, but most people don't plan their nutrition. That's one of the
It's a
hugest downfalls I
great,
see.
that is
Yeah.
a great suggestion right there.
Plan
And
your nutrition. Yeah,
plan what you want to eat before you're all of a sudden reaching for something very quickly. I
absolutely.
think that's so great. And I also really like what you said is that there's this point of being honest with yourself about how you want to feel, right?
Mhm.
And when we get caught up in that cycle, and you know what? Hey, I was blessed with a thin dad, thin mom, right? But I went and I had my whole panel taken, about 2 years ago. And the doctor said, and we have Alzheimer's in our family history. And the doctor said, hey, I have some really important information and you really need to listen, Hillary. And I said, oh, that sounds a little serious. And he's like, I just want to let you know you are a fat person in a thin body. I'm
Mm.
like, what? He says, I've been monitoring your eating for this last week. Your, the vitamins, the this, that. You are that woman that's on the commercial that's walking down the red carpet and then just falls over. And nobody knows, like, God, I thought they were so healthy. They look so good. And it really was a wake-up call for me.
Mm,
And they said, based on, they did a whole bunch of other tests and body and da da da. And they said, you really should go on a Mediterranean diet. And I
mm,
remember like literally looking at what they told me I could eat. And I wanted to cry. I was just
mm,
like, oh my God, this is changing everything. And it is hard to change your approach and what you're comfortable with and the stories you tell yourself about food. But
mhm,
you have done such a great job. And it did take me some time to embrace. And I didn't go all in initially. And it's
mhm,
crazy because, you think like they've told me my health is at risk. I
mm,
should have gone all in, but I knew me and I knew I had to work my way in. I had to create those better habits. And I
mm.
put little things in consistently, more of the lettuces and salads that I never would have eaten before. But for people, when you're talking, and I love planning ahead,
Mm.
how do you, how, because you're so, I mean, God, you've got this amazing body, you radiate health. How do you now plan for yourself over, the next couple of days or 3 days or 4 days when you're maybe going on a business trip or you're going on vacation or you're going, how do you then incorporate in still trying to be respectful of your habits and not blow the habits you've created?
Well, and that's a great question. It actually even ties into like my third, thing about really, breaking that cycle is really leaning into the fact that like healthy living is really about like being more consistent and not being perfect. It's about progress over perfection. So it doesn't require being perfect. And so to answer your question on the day to day, I literally do spend about 5 minutes every single night when I wrap up my day. I have a planner. I'm old school. I like to write everything out.
Me
It's
too.
also it's also because I like to cross things off. Like
Me
that's the
too.
thing. Yeah, I do it with a pencil. Like it's a whole thing. But I literally look, okay, like what is my day? And I visualize where I'm going to get my food in, right? So it's like, okay, it's tomorrow morning I've got this podcast interview and I've got this. Okay, so that means tomorrow morning before I get going, I need to go ahead and make a robust smoothie that I can have with me because I'm back to back and I know like that's it. Or oh, I've got this business meeting over here. Oh my gosh, my favorite salad place is over there. So I'm going to leave 5 minutes early. I'm going to order it to go. I'll pick it up. So after my meeting, it's little planning things like that that can make all the difference. Now, when
Mm.
traveling, here's the thing with traveling doesn't have to be any different. Like for years, I looked at traveling and vacation as like an all out binge fest, right? It was like my excuse to like, I'm on vacation. Woo, let's go. And I still do like probably indulge. I mean, yeah, over Christmas. I mean, yeah, was I drinking and eating way more than I normally do? Yes, but it was different. It wasn't from a place of, oh, this is my time to binge. It was, oh, this is just the season. This is just where it's at. I'm enjoying it. Like this is different. So I think that when you are traveling or you are on vacation, it really is just leaning into this, like these, and it goes back to this. I'm a grown ass woman. I can eat what I want anytime. These foods are available to me anytime. Going on vacation doesn't mean it's like my only opportunity. I am empowered, like, right. That's taking back your power from food. We've, for so many of us, we've given our power away to food. It's taking that power back and being like, I make my own choices here. And what that allows you to do, because most of us will agree when you go all in and like overdo it, like on the cheesecake and that whole big bowl of chips and do all that, how do you feel after? You don't physically feel that,
Absolutely.
like,
You feel
not, you
terrible.
feel terrible, right? And so that's the thing, is that that's the space I was talking about when I was saying that when you just give yourself permission and be like, I can have that if I want, it does open up this space to tap into, you know what, the last time I said, well, I went all in, I actually felt like crap after I ate that entire piece of cheesecake. So I still want the cheesecake. I'm going to have it, but I'm going to eat it until I'm satisfied. And then that's good because I can have it anytime I want. I really
So
can.
Amber, I've heard something, and you
Yeah.
just triggered something in my brain here. I've heard that after you have initially taken a bite, like let's say a pecan pie, which is one of my favorites, then you have another bite and your taste buds are still on high alert, high alert. They're on fire. And then by the third bite, you're not even the receptors are not even at that level to give you that jolt again, the appreciation of what you're eating. Is that true, or is that something I've heard and maybe it's like a myth?
Well, I don't know the actual science behind that, but I will say mentally, I will say that is, you will find, if you are listening to this and you start practicing this, I promise you are going to find it. You are going to find that, because I hear this from clients all day, every day. Like, oh, I had the cake, but literally I had just a couple bites. And then I was like, I'm good. So I do think I want to look this up after the show, because I'm like, is there some science behind that? Because I do think that it's true. And I know it from my own self that, like, yeah, if you really are really in tune with your body and you're letting go of this idea that I'm doing anything wrong, that this is my only time to eat it, and like, blah, 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 blah. And you just be present and like actually just commit to, like, I'm having this, I'm ready for it. And like being mindful of it, I guarantee you're going to have a few bites and be like, I'm good. Like, that was satisfying to me. I don't need any more. You will find you will have a shift. In fact,
okay.
Yeah.
So as we are wrapping up, this hour went so fast.
I know.
Where can people follow you, find out how to get into? I know you've got a great program that's going to be starting up. Tell us how we can reach you.
Yes. Well, of course, I am on all the social media. I'm on TikTok. I'm at Miss Amber Shaw. I'm on Instagram. I love getting DMs from people that want to connect. So send me a DM over on Instagram if something I said resonated, or do you have a question? I'm at Miss Amber Shaw. It's MS Amber Shaw. And then, yes, I have a free 2-day event coming up February 7th and 8th. And I am so excited about this. This is a 2-day transformational event. And what I'm going to be doing, just totally in complete transparency, I'm actually taking trainings and modules directly from my 6-month program and putting them into this 2-day event. And the whole point of this 2-day event is to really teach you some of the big dial movers when it comes to creating that foundation of sustainable weight loss and creating that lifestyle that works for you. How do you even go about doing that? Where do you start? And so that's what we're going to be covering. I personally coach this 2-day event. It's a very intimate group. It's going to be coaching and breakout sessions, and I'm super excited about it.
And it's a full 2-day event.
It's over 2 days, and it's going to be from it's 3 hours from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, and then same time 6 to 9 p.m. On Wednesday. So yeah, so it's
we will put all of this in the show notes. We will make sure, but please, this is the time, right? We're not about, these quick fix. We want to have sustainability, as Amber has shown us. I mean, this has been so enlightening. I have loved it. Amber, thank you for being on the show this week. And we've got to do this again, because it was so good. And then for next week, you're not going to want to miss this, because this is actually what we're going to be talking about is I'm going to go solo with you to talk about how you can incorporate, tune in, change your channel, and be able to do this on your own. So please join us next week. You're going to hear some really incredible stories. And at this point, I want you to remember, live now, love now, relaunch now. See you next week. You've just heard another episode of the ReLaunch podcast. If something shared in this episode resonated with you, please head over to iTunes right now and leave us a 5-star review. And share this episode with others to inspire them to take the small steps that lead to a life full of purpose and possibility. And remember, you can have immediate access to the show notes and any giveaways at therelaunchco.com/podcast. Until next week, now is your time to relaunch your transition into a transformation.